Do you own or want to own or buy a building in a historic district and develop it, but don't know where to find the money? You're going to want to tune in for this next episode with our guest, Alex Flachsbart, to talk about the capital stack. So we are very excited to have Alex with us today. Alex and I have worked together, many, many years now, from before you started OPAL to OPAL's going nationwide now, so it's kind of exciting. So do you want to tell folks a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I would be happy to. And first of all, thank y'all for having me on. Thank y'all for actually caring enough and being nerdy enough to want to listen to this. There's a select few of us out there, and we're proud of it. Mary's right. Gosh, we've been working together for over a decade now. Yeah. That is crazy. But I'm a recovering lawyer. So I love tax credits, love economic development in various capacities. But when Opportunity Zones came out back in 2018, saw the opportunity to do something a little bit bigger on a statewide basis and try to mobilize more funding sources around serving places that historically have been underserved across the state. So OPAL was created back in 2018 as sort of the state's response strategy around Opportunity Zones, with the idea that one day maybe we'd be able to harness new markets tax credits and historic tax credits and everything else to kind of pull in. And that's sort of exactly where we are today. So been a fun $700 million journey to get here, but we're going to continue to expand and continue to do cool stuff all over the state.
It is an amazing thing when people come to me, because again, I've been a local Main Street director, just talking about, I have a great idea, but the but always follows in that I don't know where to find the funding to be able to get this project to move forward. And I worked on a project where we were trying to take an old high school into a hotel, a convention center, and the stack included it was a different state, so CID funds, Community Improvement District funds, historic tax credits, both state and federal. We used CDBG on that project. USDA REAP energy efficiency funds. It was wild seeing how can we layer all of these different things. And it is possible, but you have to have patience and perseverance. And you have to make sure that you handhold the developer along the way. So that's something we've been, Alex and I have worked a lot together to try to help our local Main Street directors have enough knowledge to be able to help someone through that process without getting completely sucked in and overwhelmed, because there's people like you who like doing this.
a small but brave cohort. Yes,
There's a few.
That's right.
So you also serve on our Main Street Alabama board. So how long have you served, and what has been your favorite thing about being part of the Main Street Alabama board?
So it has been, I actually had to think about this. It's been also almost a decade, I think just under a decade of various roll-ons and roll-offs where I can very clearly mark the roll-offs because I was just sad for some reason and I couldn't quite put my hand on, wow, it's because I rolled off Main Street. So I think I'm on my second full rotation right now.
You should be getting a call shortly to see if you'd like to serve a second term. So.
Yes.
All right, cool. I'm going to write that down.
David, we took care of that for you.
So short version, it's fun. I tell everyone that I meet this, like the Main Street Alabama, and this is credit to Mary, credit to all of you for kind of putting together the right group of people in the room.
Oh, no, it's totally Mary.
It is. It's the most fun board that I serve on because everyone who is in the room actually deeply cares about the thing that we are all talking about on a consistent basis. And they're just fun people, right? Like so I actually I love every organization that I'm involved in. I love all of you. It's just, this is not a comment on anything else, but like, I have more fun at Main Street board meetings. I've always said I have more fun at Main Street board meetings than I do like any of the. So
Jennifer thinks they're fun too.
They're great, and look, every excuse I can get to I'll always get there a little early and spend some time in a Main Street coffee shop, sending out some emails and stuff like that. So have lunch afterwards. Every excuse I can get to one of our Main Street communities, I always take it.
Well, good deal. And you've been such a great resource for our communities. We were talking before the podcast started a little bit about a project that we have both been involved in Florence and some of our other communities. That Main Street America actually has a fund that we're trying to tap into as a part of that. Here's the puzzle. How many different pieces can you find to put into the puzzle? So that gets to kind of my next question is, how did you get into this development process other than being a tax credit nerd? And everybody goes, I don't understand them.
And let me just say, you're going to hear a lot of alphabet soup in this podcast. I'm just warning everybody ahead of time. We will try our best to put everything in the explanation of the podcast, what all these alphabet soups are. So there you go.
All right. So answer number one, I'm a nerd. So that's the entry pathway. But then specifically, it's like at the end of the day, if you know what programs exist out there and how those programs work together, and you can do it once or twice, it becomes relatively scalable as you continue.
Exactly.
The problem is that, like, you know, if you're working boots on the ground and you've spent your life dedicated to your Main Street community, you probably haven't had the opportunity to do this 20 times because your Main Street doesn't have 20 buildings to do this on, right? So I think this is exactly your point, Mary. The question that we've asked ourselves is, how do we create an external framework that someone who is doing the first or second or third of those capital stacking exercises can plug into immediately? So that's the path. The passion that I bring to this is, again, if your brain is wired like mine and you enjoy reading deep sections of the tax code and figuring out how those actually wind up applying in real life, there's really only so many ways that you can actually use that to be helpful to people. And I think that I found one of the few that actually kind of works. If I can use the tax code to create more local coffee shops that I can go sit in, right, and send emails from, that's always a good thing.
There you go. I and kind of going back to, people don't know what they don't know. So a lot of times they leave opportunity on the table.
Yep.
But what I have run into many, many times over the years is like, well, yes, I would love these historic tax credits, but I don't want to follow the rules. Then you don't get the money. So there is that patience and perseverance when it comes to understanding it. And that's why it's really good to have an Alex on your team. Somebody who writes, you know, historic and federal tax credit nominations and able to get you the funding, and understanding that a lot of it comes on the back end of a project, not on the front end of a project.
Yep.
So it's just all of those things. You may have to have a bridge loan to get you to the point where you get the other funding because the project has to be completed. But that's a part of other people's money, other people's rules. But you can tie them all together. It's not impossible to use different sources of funding and put them onto one project. You just have to be, I'm all about not going to jail. You got to follow the rules and make sure that you're following through with the right information back to those sources of funding.
That's right. Well, and again, like one of the things I know we're going to talk about a lot, back to capital stacks, it's like to your point about layering things, every single deal, every real estate project, period, full stop. I don't care if it's a $100 million real estate project in downtown Birmingham or if it's a $3 million project in Demopolis, right? In either case, you're going to have 2 elements and potentially 3 elements of your capital stack. And those don't change. And this is kind of the fun. If you can figure those out, like you can sort of start slotting the things that go into each of those elements to then make your deal better. But you're going to have debt, you're going to have equity, which is your investment. And then if you're lucky and you want to follow the rules and you want to play by, you know, what the federal government tells you have to do, what state government tells you have to do, et cetera, then you got incentives, right? Free money that comes in the project. And each of those, debt, equity, incentives, each of those 3 elements of the capital stack are consistent, synonymous. I mean, almost every one of your projects is going to have the first 2. And then again, if you're willing to participate, you get the third. So then it's just a question of taking what you know the project can produce from a cash flow perspective and funneling that back to the front of the deal to look at, okay, starting at 0, if I'm leasing this thing to a nonprofit, if I was going to earn no revenue, okay, that very much influences the fact that I'm probably not going to have any debt on this project, right? Because I can't afford it. So that influences equity and grants in the capital stack, right? If you know you're going to have some cash flow, that then sizes exactly how much debt you can have. Then you're just filling in the equity and the incentives based on what you know, based on what you're, you know, actually able to lease this thing up for, you need to cover the gap, right? That's what we're always talking about. It's almost like some people think of capital, like, you know, gap in capital stack as some like immutable, immovable object. And it's really not, right? It's always a function of what is your project? What are you ultimately going to do with that project? How much cash is it going to generate? How does that matter for your debt? And then, okay, if all those factors are true, if all those things have been analyzed, you can actually very precisely measure and then ultimately shrink or expand what that gap looks like. And based on what you know about what you're doing with the project, that's going to heavily influence what other sources of debt you could go get that are cheaper that could then help solve for it. It will influence what kinds of incentives you can get and whether you need to go get 1 or 2 or 5 to make the project work and whether you're going to qualify because of what you're doing with it. So it's like project development is such an iterative process, and it's fun to kind of work alongside through a couple programs we have. It's really fun to work alongside folks that are in communities that are actually doing the work. That's what I enjoy most about this.
Well, and I think once you get somebody who's going back to the teaser on this, do you own a building or do you want to own a building in a historic business, but you don't know what the heck you're doing? Once somebody gets a taste for it, they're going to continue to do it because
Correct.
once they figure it out and they know, okay, there is a path forward on this. I've seen one in particular in a city back in Kansas where the developer really just wanted to tear down this historic building, which was, we're going, please don't do that. It's really fabulous. And honestly got to the point where an attorney was saying, hey, we're going to go and do a cease and desist for a little bit while we figure this out, which he was very angry about. But at the end of the day, once he figured out, oh, well, there's these tax credits, he has done 8 projects since. He's now the biggest proponent for historic tax credits that I've ever seen, and that wasn't where he started, but he wasn't aware of the power that in these buildings that you can't replicate, first of all, but also the power of how we can move a project forward if you just have patience and perseverance and somebody who knows how to get them there.
Well, and that's so a huge part of the reason, Mary, that we developed. So we at OPAL, we're a 2-sided shop. One side of our shop has capital products. That's what we were talking about earlier. So we have a loan fund that does bridge. We have various, I think, 9 different equity investment vehicles that do everything from opportunity zone investing to normal investing to buying tax credits. So we've built this whole sort of array of impact-oriented capital products that we can deploy. But what we found consistently was if we want to deploy them to the places that we would really like to see the capital flow, like our Main Street communities, right? Especially the ones that really need it. We've got to have infrastructure on the ground to support the people that want to do this work and have only done it, 1 or 2 times. Because again, that's what we were talking about earlier. So we built this program called Property Development Assistance Program to kind of be I'll call it the framework for supporting whether it's local property owner, whether it's a potential local property owner, whether it's a local nonprofit, even in some cases kind of a more municipally aligned entity. How do we work with someone who's not done the whole comprehensive development process of building out a complex capital stack pro forma, building out a schedule around that complex capital stack pro forma, pricing in the right way, all the different elements of if I'm going to build to a historic standard, that's going to change my pricing. That's going to change who I have to hire as an architect. It's going to
change your timeline.
100%. Yeah. So all of those things, even if I've done a development deal before, which not everyone has, those things are going to change depending upon the incentives you start layering into the stack. So what Property Development Assistance Program is designed to do is to meet anyone where they are who wants to do something catalytic and arm them with the tools that they need in a wraparound support kind of framework to get that catalytic idea through the pre-development process and into construction. So it's been really fun because that pre-dev process now pairs with kind of all these fun capital products that we have such that we can build the project around what I know I can deploy to rather than building a horse to water. That is a mixed metaphor. Building the thing and then leading the horse to water and then hoping it drinks, whatever, kind of mix those all up and it works. But yeah, so it's been fun to build out. And I think the other kind of thread to then chase is, all right, so in most Main Street communities, you're gonna have old buildings, right? Like you just definitionally will. Yeah. And you have your developers, like live example of the exact scenario you were talking about. We have a developer in one of the Main Street communities we're working with who, he did his first historic project and it is expensive, right? Like some people don't want to deal with the time, the complication, whatever else. So he did that, didn't use HTCs on that one. Next deal, a little bit bigger. Capital gap was a lot bigger based on the use case. And we looked at it 2 ways. We looked at it with historic tax credits and without historic tax credits. And we'll be darned, it didn't work period, full stop, without the HTCs.
Oh,
The HTCs is what made the whole thing pencil. So now he's just like your developer in Kansas. He's, kind of a convert. So it's once you see the power of kind of how the incentives can actually make stuff work that wouldn't otherwise pencil, it's a pretty fun tool to have.
Well, and I think it's too, one of the things we're starting to see is you don't have, I'm getting more to education stuff now and skill sets. Sometimes it's hard to find people who can do historic windows, somebody who can work on a historic building, because it is a little bit different set of skills for 100%. Sure. And there's not as many of those artisans, I would call them, around anymore. So if you're looking for a career and you like to work with your hands, it's a really good project to start learning a little bit more about, because there's a lot of old buildings out there.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people who are going to require that specialized help, because it's not like you can just slap in a replacement window. It doesn't work. So you have to know how to do those things. So have you run across those types of artisans in the work that you're doing?
Oh my gosh. So not only
you meet some cool people.
You meet some phenomenally interesting people, and most, again, back to most of them are not in Birmingham and Huntsville, right? Most of them are in more rural geographies.
Yep.
I mean, to give you two examples. So one, actually, this is a non-Alabama example. So don't everyone hear me and go running away to Maine after I say this. But maybe in August. You should probably run away to Maine in August if you're in Alabama. But we're working on a project in Augusta where it's
Georgia or Kansas?
No, the Maine one. So like as far away as you can get. And again,
Augusta, Maine.
Yeah, that one. The one all the way away.
I guess there is
you
an
only
Augusta.
go to Georgia and Kansas. Look at you.
Well, there is an Augusta, Kansas.
I didn't know there was an Augusta, Kansas.
Doing work in Augusta, Kansas. Oh yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. But yeah.
Okay, well,
cool little
anytime you want to have Mary do a podcast on Kansas, I would actually listen to that podcast. The building, it's actually a whole campus of old, former military installation built after the War of 1812.
Wow.
So like this is very old, very cool buildings. And the sponsor on that one, because this has been kind of a labor of love for them, they've been working on this project now for the better part of a decade and have sort of amassed this, here's the stone guy, here's the window, here's the mullions guy, here's the guy who knows how to do slate roofs or whatever. And because so many they're all relatively older. They're all approaching retirement or, would like to be retired but can't be, because they don't have someone to...
Too much work out there.
Too much work out there and no one to pass it on to. So they have almost accidentally started a training program for up there in that part of the world to sort of train the next generation of folks doing this work, because again, there's not that many folks left that know how to do it, and many of them are approaching retirement or are at that age right now. So yes, if you are a young person who cares about this stuff, like it is a total expansion field, because look, there's still if you go to any rural community in the country, let alone in Alabama,
so many.
You will find there's
the buildings were built to last. I mean, when you look at windows and some of these buildings that have been there 100 years. Don't put a replacement window in it. They're still good there if it's been taken care of at all. So those things can be saved and revitalized, I guess is the right word.
And the Historic Commission is going to make you put in. It's not just a want to. It is a make you. But hey, in exchange for that, every dollar you spend on the building, you get 40 cents back in free money, right?
Yeah.
Free money is good.
So if somebody were to ask you, okay, well, how do I start with building a capital stack? What kind of advice can you give them?
It's a really good question. So again, you go back to first principles of, I need to know with a pretty high degree of certainty what it is you are going to be doing with this building, who is going to be occupying this building, before you really build the capital stack. And I think most people think about it backwards, right? They think about, okay, I've got this building, I've got to figure out how to revitalize, I've got to figure out how to pay for it, and then I'll figure out who my tenants are going to be.
No.
You have to start with who your tenants are going to be. And again, and when I say specificity, if you're thinking about residential, okay, what kind of residential? Is it going to be affordable to people making between 80 and 120% of area median income? It will be affordable to people making below that, because those influence capital stack choice, right?
And there's the Hope 6 Main Street Fund that can assist with that type of stuff. So there are other options for affordable housing funds too, but you can't change in midstream and say, I don't want to do this anymore. You have to follow the rules to get those funds.
That's exactly right. If you're doing retail, like what kind of retail? Where are you going to need your chases? Where are you going to need your, like, is it going to be impact oriented retail? Because you lease the space to a nonprofit. If so, what's their rent rate going to be? So all those decisions create a cash flow profile for the project that without knowing what that cash flow profile is, you can build a capital stack all day long, but it's like drawing lines in the sand at the beach, right? Like it's just going to get erased by the next wave that shows up. So once you've got that and you've got that with some degree of certainty, then you can start backing into, okay, I know what I'm doing with this thing. Then it's probably time to call someone like OPAL or otherwise, like to say, okay, here's what I'm doing with this thing. I know what I'm doing with this thing. I've gotten some initial pricing around that vision for what I'm going to do with this building. So I know what it costs. Now let's think about plugging, based on what I'm doing, the right source of debt that's the cheapest, right? The right sources of incentives that, to Mary's point, if I can get there with one incentive, great, let's just do that and not layer in four.
Right.
But if I can't, now I know that. And I know that I have to go get 2 or 3 other ones, and then I can start being creative and flexible of where those come from.
So it's really thinking backwards as opposed to thinking forward. So you really need to think backwards as far as what you would consider if you were, going into business, let's say. You've got to make sure that you're thinking about it the whole backwards way that you would, kind of walking through it backwards, I think.
Well, and I think it always comes back to the market. You have to understand what your market will support. I mean, you may want champagne and caviar, but if you have a beer and burger market, you need to be thinking about beer and burger. And that's perfectly okay. We love that. But it is important to understand this. I have dealt with so many property owners in my career who I really would like to do this. And I'm going, yeah, but the market is this. And or people who have inherited buildings, and I know you run into this too, and they're going, I can't sell it because this is where my grandparents settled and they lived. I mean, all the lovely stories that you hear, but do you really think your grandparents want you to just let a building dilapidate? Is that how you honor someone's investment in your family? So, be thinking about what it can be moving forward. So those are the kinds of, but they're not thinking backwards, like you were saying. They aren't thinking about the market. They're just thinking sometimes too much with their heart, not enough with their head, and being realistic about what can work in there, but also being realistic about how you can help your community by putting the right thing in that your community will support. It's lovely to have visitors come in, and we are a high tourism state. It's great. 65 is fun this time of year, but you have to serve the locals.
Right.
And if you can give back that way, any heritage buildings that you've been loved on by your grandparents or whatever that you now have ownership of, they would want you to do this kind of stuff with it, not just hold on to it because I can't sell it and it's sitting empty. Because the worst possible thing you can do to a building is leave it empty.
100%.
The worst possible thing.
Yep.
So I like that, but you got to really think through that market, and once you think through the market, it helps you understand who your tenants might be, and then you can start backing into the capital stack.
And this is a great reason. Well, so 2 things. One, you should all steal the burgers and beer versus the champagne and caviar line, because
we totally need that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, I've heard this is like Mary's catchphrase, and I use it all the time when I'm talking to communities.
It's not a real thing, but but it works.
It's coined. I feel like you trademark it. You'll make at least $5 from me as I use this.
Put it on a shirt, yeah.
So, but 2, this is why I love working in Main Street community. I mean, I love working in all our communities. Let's be clear, but I love working in Main Street communities because the data-driven decisions that you need to make to understand which of those 2 categories you fall into, and most are beer and burgers. But then within beer and burgers, what derivatives of beer and burgers are you? What things are you missing in your market? What do you have too much of? What's your residential pricing? All those things. Any Main Street market, I know exactly who I'm going to call to figure out that information. It's the local Main Street director, right?
Because we provide that information to them. So it's really interesting, especially I was talking to my own children about AI and all the craziness around AI, but there's so many things you can find out just by the Google or looking at the market data, but even Placer AI data, which is actually your cell phone data that they track when you're in a particular area for, what does it have to be, 10 minutes, I think. You need to be in an area before it tracks you as being there. Big Brother is truly truly watching you.
Oh, horrifying, but fascinating at the same
But it is
time.
fascinating information for you to know in a community that said, okay, if we have an event, is it actually going to help our communities? Or where are people coming from? That's probably the most fascinating thing for me. We did it for 4th Avenue, and the biggest place was the Civil Rights Institute and 16th Street Baptist Church, of course, but then to the Wing Place, and then back over to the Alabama Theater. And I went, that makes sense. But if you didn't actually see it on paper, you'd go, okay, where are people going? Green Acres is the name of that
That's
particular
fascinating.
It's so good. But it's
Seconded.
very interesting to see where people are coming and going and on their way. So it's
The next,
stuff.
the next podcast will, by the way, just be Mary making recommendations about various places to eat across the state of Alabama.
I've been
So
everywhere, man.
tune into that. I will certainly be. So get excited. Get ready.
Well, just down the road, go to Champy's because that's where we go after every podcast. I guarantee you.
Truth.
A shout out to Champy's.
Shout out to Champy's.
They're on our way. That's our reward for getting through these podcasts. But,
That's great.
no, it's just been a pleasure always because Alex and I, we sit passing the night. We don't hardly ever sit in the same room for any length of time. So this is just a pleasure to hang out with you. But you don't come across this kind of passion, intelligence, and youth all in one person because he's still a kid.
I thought Mary was self-describing herself there, and I was going to say, Mary, I mean, I agree, but geez, no.
No, I mean, it is exciting to see you come into this field and continue to have the passion for it because that shows me other people. It's not an old field. Some of us are older than others, but it's not an old field. This is a young field. The Main Street industry is a fairly young field, and it's a fun one to get involved in, and it's only going to continue to evolve. So getting the opportunity to really talk through how to take something that you love that's near and dear to your heart about your district and your home, and how do we develop it and take it to the next 100 years. Pretty cool stuff.
Totally agree.
Pretty good day in the neighborhood.
Great day in the neighborhood. Always a great day in the neighborhood with y'all.
Thank you for coming, Alex.
Thank y'all for having me. This has been the highlight of my week so far.
Yay,
So.
well, it's only Wednesday.
I was
You
just
got
going to
time.
say the same thing.
I was going to say,
Wednesday, you
yeah,
got
it will
some time.
improve significantly, but no, this is a good medium point to stop off at.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining us today. Always a pleasure. If you get a chance to check out OPAL and the great work they do, please do so. And you're going to be at our conference too, I think.
Will indeed.
At a resource
And
table,
we will be
so.
linking OPAL website on the podcast, so it will have your website and information.
Fabulous. We have a great resources page, by the way. If you actually want to go in the weeds, I spared y'all by not actually using all the acronyms. But if you want to get in the weeds on the acronyms,
There are a few. And Oz, Opportunity Zone, you got a few minutes to just talk about what Opportunity Zones are.
Oh, yeah.
Because we did skip that.
So what I'd say is, and it's probably worth a whole different podcast, different conversation for a different day.
We can always have you back, too.
Maybe. If this cool free gift is what everything what I think it is, maybe I might show back up again.
Free gifts.
So what I'd say is, please go to the website. We've got great resources on OZs, new markets tax credits, historic tax credits, a bunch of other stuff, and you can get a good base level of OZ education there. The thing I'll flag for everybody from a timeliness perspective, if you're in Alabama, Opportunity Zone, the OZ 2.0 is upon us, meaning the program that was created by the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2018 sunsets at the end of this year and then is made permanent starting on January 1 of 2027. So OZs is now a permanent part of the tax code. You can learn all about it on our website. But the map changes.
Yes.
So the entire map for Opportunity Zones where they are is getting reset by...
We are excited about that because the last round was interesting. And some of our communities is like, why do we only have this side? We don't have this side. I don't understand why. So I'm hoping I don't have to say why this time. So it's cool. That's the way you should do it.
Every single one of you, please go and you can just hop in, Google Opportunity Zones 2.0 map, and it will be the first thing that pops up. Look at what is eligible in your community. Get with your local economic developers to advocate for the tracks that you want. ADECA is taking nominations through the end of this month, but they are not. Yeah, it's coming up.
It's like, ooh.
But this is what I'll say. ADECA, while they are taking nominations at the end of the month, has told everyone who asks that they would strongly prefer for each community across the state, so kind of county-ish aggregate, to not send in 30 different forms, but to send in one with all of your
Everybody
tracks
get together, play nice.
ranked.
Yes.
Please get together and play nice with each other and figure out, if you had your ideal world, how you would rank your potential opportunity zones, and get on it. So late breaking news here. We get to break news on the podcast here. That you guys get on it.
Good stuff.
Right?
Get out there and check it out what opportunity zones are. They're really meant to help a community get over a hump. If you have a development hump in your community. So
that's right.
Thanks again, Alex. Great to see you. And we're looking forward to the next podcast coming up here shortly.
Yep. So thank you so much.
Thanks. If you have questions that you would like to pose to us on maybe future episodes of the Sweet Hometowns podcast, just send those to info@mainstreetalabama.org.
You can learn more about Main Street Alabama and the Sweet Hometowns Initiative at sweethometowns.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates and episode highlights.
The Sweet Hometowns podcast is a production of Main Street Alabama in partnership with Video Visions Media Marketing.